And welcome back to the Rack Show, ladies and gentlemen. I'm one of your hosts, Frank Horvath. Joined with me in studio is, as usual, Mr. Tim Kelly. Tim, how are you doing today?
I'm good, man. I'm good. How are you?
I am fantastic, having a great day. We also have a guest host with us in the studio, Zach Cox. Zach, how are you doing, buddy?
Good, man. It's been a good morning so far, and happy to be here.
Yeah, good. Well, so we have a fun show for you guys this morning. We have all kinds of interesting things to talk about. Let's see. News this week has just been pumping with Second Amendment issues, pumping with constitutional issues. Let's see. New Mexico, right? So we had the governor of New Mexico had put a temporary stay, release a temporary order. Saying that any firearms that are inside of the limit of Albuquerque, right, and the surrounding and the city of Albuquerque and the surrounding the county that Albuquerque's in, it's almost like a no guns allowed here kind of thing, right? So publicly, no open carry, no concealed carry. There's a temporary stay, calling it like an emergency.
She's calling it like a suspension or something.
Yeah,
like
suspension,
Yeah,
right?
temporary holder.
Yeah, and there's some big issues with that, right? Some concerns, some stuff there that should really be considered. So that's in New Mexico, right?
Right.
So with all that's happening in New Mexico, how does that affect us here? How does that affect us like here in North Carolina, right? That's the big question. And when will it affect us if it hasn't already, right? So it's really already an assault on our constitutional rights. Tell you what, let's play one of the clips. And see what we have here. Give me 1 second. All right, let's go to that.
Governor Michelle Lujan Grisham last week declared a public health emergency and announced a 30-day ban on carrying firearms, open or concealed, in public areas in Albuquerque and its county. She issued the emergency order.
Right, so not great, right? So that's the emergency order, and part of what she's trying to say or claim is it's for our health, or it's for our safety, for the safety of our citizens, which I understand a piece of that, but at the expense of our constitutional rights, that really doesn't jive well with me.
Right, man. Like, I don't know what it is. She's just trying to make these bold moves to make an impact because she doesn't know what else to do, right? And it's just the wrong way about going to do things. Like it's definitely the wrong way. Like this has been proven in history. It's been proven all over the place. These type of bans, suspensions, whatever you want to call it, they don't work. They don't do anything except make law-abiding citizens more vulnerable, ones that are law-abiding citizens, And we want to be. We want to be responsibly armed citizens, and part of that is abiding by the laws. When you look at Albuquerque, man, they've got a huge crime rate, right? They have all kinds of what they're referring to as gun violence, and they think that telling you can't have guns is actually going to stop you from doing crime. Right. It's not the way this works.
Yeah, I think in one of her initial press releases, she said, like, I understand the criminals aren't going to abide by this. But, okay, if the criminals aren't abiding by this, the only person that you're hurting are the responsibly armed citizens, right? The people who are choosing to carry. The other piece of that is, again, I don't want to paint it as a poor picture, but she's saying, well, the families of these children that have gotten hurt, right? The families of children that have died, because of gun violence. But here's the thing, right? They list all these statistics, and this is just national, right? So take a look at all the national statistics on gun violence. There's a lot of information that's out there, but look at the range of the when these numbers are being pointed to. So they conveniently take out the 0 to 2 years, right? So they say, okay, well, deaths of a child between 0 and 2 years, we're going to ignore those numbers. So from 2 to 18, right? Those are those gun to death numbers that we're going to look at, nationally, or look at, in our our counties, municipalities, whatever it may be, right? So, but if you really dive into that data, while yes, there are some unfortunate numbers that are in there, right? No child should perish due to any kind of violence, let alone firearm violence or gun violence. But if you take a look at that, a vast majority of that is gang related trauma, right? Gang related violence, and it's in that 17, 18. I mean, it's really in that upper end of that of that age bracket.
Right.
And it's still tragedy. It's not something that you want, but it still causes other issues. Man, I got to give it to some national news syndicates and things like that are really giving it to her. Let's listen to another clip real quick, and we'll take a gander.
Also have, Governor, the Constitution of New Mexico and the Constitution of the United States, and you're an attorney. Do you think you're on solid constitutional ground here?
Well, we're going to see. I mean, look, I wouldn't do it if I didn't think I had the right. I have the right.
Where is the right? Where is the
in
right?
the state of New Mexico. Public health, it's a suspension. It's not a ban. And we'll see what all of these court actions do. And I did say publicly, Poppy, look, I got a Supreme Court that says my personal bodily autonomy can be restricted, and yet NRA and other issues, the Second Amendment keeps getting broadened. So the Bruin case in New York, right, that deals with concealed carry, and cases in Texas that say you can
Governor,
be
what I'm talking about. You bring up the Bruin case. The Supreme Court last year. Let me just ask you this, because the Supreme Court last year totally changed what we're allowed to do, what you're allowed to do. And they said unless you can base it in the history and tradition, you don't have grounds to do something like this.
And that's it, right? So it's the Supreme Court is really on our back as far as for constitutional, right? And so if it's whether something is constitutional or not, I really feel like the Supreme Court has done a fantastic job over the past couple of years as far as really analyzing and doing a good job of saying this is constitutional, this is not, this is what we're going to do, and this is what we're setting up, the precedents that we're setting for future laws.
Well, one of the things you were asking a while ago is how does this affect us? How does this affect us directly as North Carolina citizens? Well, I've just pulled up North Carolina's Constitution, and if you scroll down to Section 30, it talks about militia and the right to bear arms. I'm just going to read this really quick. A well-regulated militia being necessary to the security of a free state, the right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. And as standing armies in time of peace are dangerous to liberty, they shall not be maintained, and the military shall be kept under strict subordination to and governed by the civil power. Nothing herein shall justify the practice of carrying concealed weapons or prevent the General Assembly from enacting penal statutes against that practice. That doesn't sound very promising.
It's not, and it's a contradiction. It is 100% a contradiction. So at the very beginning it says, shall not be infringed. On the second part is, the not, they pretend, concealed carry is not a protected right. So it's a dichotomy of government, right?
Yeah.
It's one thing saying, hey, this is exactly what's going to happen. And then on the other hand is, but we're going to leave this little escape clause for us. So just in case we have some issues.
So if you're relying on the Jason Aldean, try that in a small town mentality. That's not going to work out here.
Right. I mean, and it's going to come up to us as, the people, right? The people of North Carolina, people of our local governments, people of our local municipalities to speak up.
Yeah.
Vote, say something, really go back and reach out to people, reach out to news stations, right? Reach out to us. We'd love to hear what you have to say. We'll be able to talk with you and go back a little bit. We've got a break coming up, but let's go ahead and let's continue to talk about this. welcome back to the Responsibly Armed Citizen Show. I'm one of your hosts, Frank Horvath, and we are continuing our conversation on, the attack of the 2A that's happening in New Mexico and some other things. We had a pretty spicy first segment talking about all kinds of different things, and now bringing it back to North Carolina. So let's talk about this. So in North Carolina, we have some rights regarding open carry. We have some rights regarding concealed carry. Let's dive into that a little bit. So in North Carolina, what are your rights when it comes to open carry and concealed carry?
So if you are 18 years of age and can lawfully possess a firearm, then you can lawfully open carry in the state of North Carolina. And open carry means the gun essentially just needs to be visible to the public. A lot of gray area there. And that's a whole nother topic for another day. Concealed carry is just the opposite. It's not visible to the public, right? It's hidden or it's covered. The difference in age there is, in order to lawfully conceal a handgun in North Carolina, you got to be 21, and you have to have taken an 8-hour class on the laws that govern deadly force and the laws that govern concealed carry in the state of North Carolina. So open carry, again, there is no class that you have to take or anything like that. No, you do not have to be 21. You can be 18 and lawfully open carry. There are some restrictions in terms of where you can actually open carry in North Carolina. Like you can't open carry in state parks, where you can conceal carry in state parks.
Right.
So there's lots of places where you are actually permitted to conceal a handgun, but not permitted to open carry a handgun.
And to add to that, one of the things that we hear in like concealed carry classes, it's always a surprise is, you mean I can conceal carry in a bar? Well, yeah, you could absolutely conceal carry in a bar. You cannot open carry inside of any restaurant and any bar that serves alcohol. However, we are still held to a higher standard. The concealed carry carriers are held to a higher standard where, if you're concealed carrying, you may not drink, consume, ingest any alcohol of any kind whatsoever inside of that bar or restaurant that serves alcohol, something like that. You cannot do that with open carry. With open carry, you're not permitted to be on the premises that serves alcohol. However, there's some other little minor stipulations out there in the law that that talks about owners of establishments and things like that. Again, generally for us, civilian folk, people who are frequenting these businesses, if it says no weapons on property, no firearms permitted, something like that. If you're on a personal property and somebody says, "Hey, man, I'm not comfortable with you having that on my property," then you have to do the responsible thing, right? Sure. You do not have a right there as far as saying, no, it's my right to have a gun on your personal property. It doesn't work like that.
Yeah.
Not in the state of North Carolina. So in North Carolina, we have open carry, we have concealed carry. I want to talk about some best practices, right? So we have these rights. We have the ability to open carry. We have the ability to conceal carry. What are some best practices let's start with open carry first, and then we'll dive into concealed carry. But if you choose to open carry, now I'm not saying it's necessarily the best idea, but it is your right, right? So if you choose to open carry, man, Godspeed, go do your thing. But what are some ways that you can do that effectively when carrying in public?
So for me, I have a cattle farm, and so open carrying out there, I don't think the cows are going to get too upset about it or anything like that.
We are on your own personal property.
Yeah, exactly.
Right? Yeah.
But for me, years ago, right when I was about 21, and that was 36 now. Yeah. Anyways, math is difficult for me.
Young feller.
Yeah. When I was like 21, I had just got my concealed carry license, and I open carried in just a grocery store, normal grocery store. And I walked in, and everybody, and this was like 12 years ago, and people just started getting nervous. And I was like, oh my gosh, I'm getting nervous now. And one of the ladies was just like, I'm calling the police. And I was like, well, why? I'm just getting tomatoes. And she said, well, I'm calling the police. And I said, okay, I will stand right here and wait for them. And they came and they were like, he's got every right to do this. Have you asked him to leave? She said, no. And I said, would you like me to leave, ma'am? She went, no. I was like, okay. And he said, you can't do anything about it. But it was the whole mentality of it. It made me nervous and made them nervous in our day and age now. For me, the better practice, don't do it.
Yeah. So as far as open carry, there is a clause, right, in North Carolina, our general statutes that say, if you're doing it to the terror of the people, right, that is a problem, right?
Absolutely.
So you
Can't do it to intimidate.
You're not supposed to intimidate. You can't do it to the terror of the people. However, again, if you want to exercise your right, I mean, there's nothing stopping you from doing that, right? So if you want to, put a firearm in a quality holster, right? If you want to put a firearm, on your hip and open carry in businesses that do not have like the open carry sign, or excuse me, that do not have the no firearms allowed, no concealed weapons allowed, or whatever it may be, then you can do that. But once you're approached and then somebody says something in these establishments where they have authority to say something, right, and say, hey, I'm not comfortable with you having this here. Do you mind leaving? There's nothing you can do. Don't fight it. Right. It is that business owner's right, that establishment's right to be able to, ask you to leave. But, myself personally, just like any other person, I would enjoy going out and open carrying a firearm. At times I've done it. At this day and age, I am cautious about doing that because I feel more often than not it paints a target on your back, right? It's more of a look at me kind of thing instead of the purpose of concealed carry or purpose of carrying a firearm.
I catch myself like open carrying more often, like when I've gone hunting or something.
Right.
I most of the time I carry I carry a handgun on me to dispatch an animal or just for self-defense. And so maybe I've got to run to town to, go grab some ice or something like that for the cooler after I've harvested a deer or something. So I don't change. I just jump in the truck and go. That's going out into public and open carrying a firearm.
Right.
I would not choose to go into an establishment that has a lot of people in it, like a grocery store or something along those lines, because as Zach pointed out, it makes people feel rather uncomfortable.
Yeah.
And honestly, I get it. The perks of concealing a handgun is that you can just go on about your daily life, and that's really what we're trying to do here. We're not trying to be Rambo.
Right.
We just want to have a tool to protect ourselves and have a force multiplier should we ever have to use it for our lives, to save our own life. An open carrying a handgun, I don't care how much you want to believe it's true, you're not blending into the rest of the public. You're not like everybody else.
Right.
People are going to point you out. If my 3-year-old son can go to the grocery store and say, "Papa, he's got a gun," you stand out.
Yeah. You're not doing something right.
Right. You stand out. My 3-year-old son recognizes that person's different. Right. And when all eyes are on you, where do you think that a criminal's eyes are going to be on? Right. And honestly, right now in this time that we're going through, fighting for our rights with the Second Amendment and having to battle out all of these ridiculous laws or suspensions and stuff like that, we don't need to be painted in that light.
No.
Right? We need to be heard. Don't get me wrong, but we don't need to be seen carrying guns around. Right? It just paints a bad light on us.
Well, and I know there's plenty of people out there that would disagree. Right. And I'm not one of them. I'm in that camp, right? We're very much so like-minded in that fashion. But in the firearms community and the firearms training community in general, we need to help hold ourselves to a higher standard. Right. What does it look like when we turn on the news? Or I very rarely do, but when we do turn on the news and we take a look at these protesters that are out fighting for something, and there are just black scare rifles as far as the eye can see. You got dudes that are all tacked out. Like, what is that doing? Is that bettering our image? right? Or is that conflating your personal right with somebody else's feeling of safety? Like it's a fine line, and as a responsible armed citizen, you have to do better. Like you must work on making yourself a better person every single day. You must practice. You must train. You must you have to hold yourself to that higher standard, and again, while I think there's appropriate ways of doing that with open carry, it's challenging.
Yeah.
I think going the concealed carry route, it's much easier. So, in North Carolina, we had briefly talked about you have to there's some hurdles you have to do when for concealed carry, getting that concealed carry permit in the state of North Carolina as of today, anyway. So one of which is going and taking that 8-hour class, going through those background checks, going through those mental health releases, et cetera, all that stuff that you have to go down to the sheriff's office and get them fingerprinted, pay your money. Like there's a whole rigmarole to that. The piece of that is with that concealed carry class that you're going to be taking, that class isn't designed to teach you how to shoot a gun. Right. So it's just the instructor's just signing off. Hey, yep, they were able to do the state mandated minimum. With open carry, there's literally nothing.
Right.
Like anybody 18 or older can. So you could be the world's worst shot. Right. You could be the person who just has no training, just decides to throw that on. And if you were to use that in public, right? If you were to decide, hey, I'm going to defend my life, or I'm going to involve myself in a third party encounter or something like that because I have this idea. I mean, that can cause some issues.
Right.
That can cause some problems as far as your accuracy. The problems as far as you may not necessarily understand what the laws governing deadly force are. I mean, those are going to be my bigger hey, these are concerns. These are things that we should think about. So as if we're going to be carrying concealed, right? What are some best practices? What are some things that we should consider, right? So one of which would be gear, right? Trying to think about, we talked about on the previous episode, what different quality firearms look like, right? What kind of, what kind of things that are out there that would help best, keep things on us and keep things where it's concealed and comfortable, and that we're going about doing that. It's probably going to be something that we'll be talking about in our next segment. But what if you could just give a quick piece of advice? What would you tell somebody who's deciding to carry concealed?
Get formal training. Hold it to a reasonable metric.
Reasonable metric. Yep, I would agree. Let's continue to talk about it when we come back from break.
Welcome back to the Rack Show, where we talk about everything regarding the responsibly armed citizen. My name is Tim Kelly. With me I have Frank Horvath and Mr. Zach Cox, and we have been talking about some really interesting stuff, mostly about the attack on the Second Amendment and what's happened in New Mexico, how that affects us as North Carolina residents, and then we've been on the topic of open carry and concealed carry. In the last segment, we discussed some best practices for both of those, when you should, when you shouldn't. And we left off on a question that Frank had for me, which was,
well, where can I find the quality resources on this?
yeah.
Right?
So no, what was the question you left off with? The question you left off with was,
How can you
what's a
conceal carry?
yeah.
How can you
what-
better conceal carry?
How can you better conceal carry?
I've slept since then.
That type of thing, right? So I want to leave you guys with this on that topic, and that is focus more on the when to rather than the how to in regards to deadly force. Focus more on the when to rather than the how to. You know, a lot of folks get tied up into buy more guns. Buy more guns. That's the answer to all my problems. And then when you get into the training realm, it's learn how to shoot gun real good. You know, become USPSA Grandmaster or something like that is my ultimate goal. But when you find yourself inserted into a force-on-force situation, your when to is really going to be challenged. And if you haven't educated yourself on the subject matter and you really haven't practiced it, it is really, really complicated. Really, really complicated. And it's not something that most everyday armed citizens can just walk into and say, yeah, I got this down. I know exactly and precisely what I'm going to do when this, when everything goes down. I know how to do it. Right.
Stress inoculation is a big thing. Like really, really going through and understanding, breaking down self-defense incidences. If you're going into that blindly, the likelihood that you're going to come out on top it's not very good odds.
Right.
So it's all things to consider.
Right. So moving forward, we're going to be talking about where we can find quality resources and find more information. So.
Yeah, so before the break, Frank had started talking about gear, and then Tim at the very end said training and education. And training and education for me, is probably one of the most important parts about concealed carry. It's learning how to be a better, responsibly armed citizen. It's what we're here for. It's what we're talking about. And training and education is the biggest part of that. Vet your instructors, find people that you can learn from, and even you've got the choice to, even if you like them or not. Right. I mean, you can do that. But it's stuff about how to draw from a holster. It's aiming, trigger press, marksmanship. Just like Tim said, in the education, in self-defense, and when to. It's one of the most important parts about self-defense and concealed carry is, sure, you go through the laws of deadly force class when you take your CCW class and all that good stuff.
CCH.
But, yeah, CCH, thank you. You go through all this 8-hour program, and it doesn't really teach you much except for laws of deadly force. Doesn't teach you how to shoot.
Right, and that's kind of the point, right? Teaching the laws governing deadly force, not to teach you how to shoot, not to teach you about, in that class you literally dabble and you go, okay, here's some information, but this is what's important. This is how we keep you out of jail. This is how you keep you out of jail. And that's really
it's only the tip of the iceberg.
And it is. It is just the tip of the iceberg. Yeah. There's so much out there, and unfortunately, a lot of people who go into I've taught several concealed carry classes. I've talked to other instructors. I've went and have sat in on other instructors as they've taught this course, and unfortunately, many students walk out of those courses and they say, "All right, I now have everything that I need. I am good to go." But it's not true. It's a false sense of security. So, going out there and again, pursuing more training, pursuing more quality training, I should say, and really going after I need better performance from myself as an individual. I need better accuracy, better precision. I need to work on this. But then there's going to be a time, there's going to be an element where you need to really start stacking on that stress inoculation, whether that be electronic like a timer, or whether that's just being out there and shooting with friends or whatever it may be. But shoot a match, right? Yep. There needs to be some sort of consistent stress inoculation that gets more and more and more, and eventually maybe even doing some force on force, right? There's things that are out there. Again, it's not a perfect parallel. Right? You're not going to know the day, the time, the when, if it ever were to happen. God forbid it ever did. But at least you would have like a sense of, okay, this scenario is unfolding out of my head. I've seen this type of scenario, right, in my training before. Maybe this would work. Maybe this is going to work out to my benefit. Like, there's different ways you can go about doing that.
Zach was talking about vetting your instructors, and I think that's something that we really need to hit on because most folks don't have any idea how to do that. Mainly, I know this because I was once one of those people. Yeah. I have no idea where to even start. Who's the right instructor for me? Right. So let's talk about some red flags.
All right. Giddy up.
We'll press some buttons. Let's talk about some red flags. All right, check out their Facebook page.
Right.
Check out their Facebook page. If you see fatigues for a concealed carry class, an instructor dressed in military apparel like camouflage breeches and that type of thing, that would be a red flag. Right. If they've got Punisher skulls all over their stuff, that is a red flag. Right. If some of their videos seem unsafe on I'm talking about their social media pages, that's a great way to vet your instructors. Yeah. If you look at any of their videos and it appears that they are not they are teaching in an unsafe manner, like one that I remember from a few years back. I'm pretty sure this company still exists. It's down in Raleigh or something like that. Yeah. With a guy that's holding, he made his students stand next to a target, next to the target while the other student shot. And that was part of their qualification.
I just got so much anxiety.
Yeah. Dude. Like you have to shoot the target while a student stand next to it. Now, most people would say, well, that's common sense. Well, there's people that signed up for the class.
Right.
There's people that signed up for the classes after the NRA dropped them.
Right.
After North Carolina Department of Justice
stayed at the class.
Yeah.
Instead of just left.
And that's the thing, right? So there are a lot of other instructors out there that say, "Oh, trust me, I'm an instructor." Okay, show me your credentials.
Right.
That's something that you have to do. Like, as a student, if I walk into a class and I say, "All right, cool, Mr. Instructor such and such, I hear that you were, I love our armed forces, right? But I hear that you're in the military, but how is that going to help me as a civilian here today?" There may be some parallels, but for the most part, a lot of what you were taught in working in and around a team of people, and me being out on my own as a civilian, like maybe me and my family, right? If not just me, myself, and I. Like, how am I going to be? How is your experience here going to be able to help me today?
Right.
And there's other things, right? We bash on the NRA, off and on. Again, I may not jive with everything that the NRA is, for and about, et cetera. My personal beliefs aside, but they have this instructor program that they've put out there, and it is for a general knowledge, for a intro to instructor stuff. It's okay. Mm-hmm. It's not the end all be all. There are far superior resources out there for instructors, quality instructors to pursue, quality instructors to really go and get other classes for. If the only thing they have on their thing is NRA, be cautious.
Yes.
I'm not saying that
unless you're there for an NRA class.
Unless you're there for an NRA class, absolutely.
If you're trying to gain some rockers or whatever it is and some certificates and you want those ratings, yeah, absolutely sit in on an NRA class. There's nothing wrong with that. But as you said, the title of all of their classes start with the basics of.
Right.
Yeah. The basics of. Right. And that is what you're going to learn in these classes. Right. I mean, that's the way it is. And it's indoctrinated. Right. It's as we've seen with the NRA and other institutions, it's almost impossible to get them to evolve and innovate over time because they're stuck to these specific
like
styles.
the dogma
Yeah,
and
his
everything,
dogma.
right?
Yeah, and you just end up with a bunch of Kool-Aid drinkers. But I digress.
But going back to that, like there's so much out there as far as vetting that instructor and just sitting down and having talk with them. For example, when you come to Apache and come take a training course, which all of you should come and
Yes.
come to Apache
Yes,
and
please do.
come to a training course. But that first session, it's really a sit down of this is who I am. Right, as an instructor, this is what our goals are. These are what our expectations are. What are your goals as a student? What are your expectations of me as an instructor? Let's have this conversation first before we get into anything that has to do with firearms. Right. So we need to have this working relationship, this working rapport, so that you are completely comfortable and you have an opportunity to vet the instructor right then and there, and then we lay down the groundwork for saying, these are our safety protocols. This is exactly what we're going to do in the event of emergency. This is the gear, the equipment that we have specifically laid out. Like we really go step by step and explain to the student, this is what's going to happen as far as your training course, and this is what you should expect of us. This is how we are going to perform. And internally as a team, this is something that we practice, we train, we vet internally.
Yeah.
We are constantly saying, just because somebody says that they're an instructor doesn't mean that they're an instructor. We've just established that already. But we're constantly going through and making sure that the people that we are putting in front of our students are quality instructors and they know what they're talking about.
They're students themselves too.
Yeah, more all of them are.
I mean,
Yeah.
Zach's been teaching for quite some time. Zach, what do you look for in an instructor? What kind of, what do you look for in an instructor, in a self-defense instructor? Let's do that.
Well, I guess the main point to sum up a lot of this is a lifetime pursuit, whether you are an instructor or you're a student or you're a concealed carry holder or just anybody. Everything in life is a lifetime pursuit because we're still learning and growing, and we should be every day. We've been taking and teaching classes for years and years, and we teach a bunch of classes, but we also take a bunch of classes constantly. We've become professional students ourselves, and we're still learning and growing every day, which we encourage everybody to. What was the question one more time? I'm so ADD, guys. I'm so ADD.
What do you look for in an instructor?
Oh, okay.
Just
Well, that's part of it is how their credentials, sure, how long they've actually been doing something, but also their style and if they have a good attitude, if there's so many different things, just like trying to vet a friend or if somebody you think is going to be your friend, whatever it is, you vet them the same way. You'd be like, okay, we kind of jive well together. And all right, now let's see if they're being safe.
Right.
We get online, we vet them, we talk to other people, and you really understand, okay, this guy or girl knows what they're talking about. I'd like to try this out.
And I think the thing that more people more often than not get hung up on is how do you know that they know what they're talking about, right?
Sure.
You have to have some sort of metric. You have to have some sort of way of quantifying their knowledge.
Right.
And that's the hard part, right?
Yeah.
Because literally anybody can go say, hey, I'm a firearms instructor, right? How do you go through and how do you vet that?
almost like we're coming up with a solution for that.
I know, right? It's pretty interesting. Talk to you right back after the break.
Nice. Welcome back to the Rack Show, where we talk about everything regarding the responsibly armed citizen. My name is Tim Kelly. With me, I have Frank Horvath and Zach Cox. And we have been talking about all types of different stuff. Started off talking about, with a show, talking about the attack on the Second Amendment in New Mexico. We've talked about your rights, or how that affects us as North Carolina residents, what our rights are in North Carolina with open carry and concealed carry. We've talked about what are some best concealed carry and open carry practices. And in the last segment, we talked about finding quality resources, and I think we should just pick up off of where we left off with that. And we've only touched on training and education and some different ways to vet your instructors and that type of thing. And I think we had a few more items to touch on. So why don't we talk about gear, finding the right resources for gear.
Yeah. So as far as gear,
I forgot. Let's go back. Kick it back real quick. I forgot to mention we've been having some technical difficulties with Frank's television behind him. His screen keeps shutting off, and so we had to fix that. Luckily, we have an artist in the house, and Zach Cox created.
We fixed it. So for the digital media fam, you guys get an exclusive here. If you need to check out the YouTube, the WSIC News YouTube channel, you can see our awesome sign here. It is fantastic. But anyway, getting back to the topic at hand. So gear, right? So there's a lot of reputable gear companies that are out there. And really, the focus of gear is you want to find something that is comfortable for you, talking about concealed carry specifically. You want to find something that is comfortable for you, for your body style, your body shape, that will allow you to conceal that firearm in a safe manner. Right. So you need to have something that is going to completely cover up, the trigger guard, right? We don't want to have any sort of item, widget, clothing, body parts unintentionally get stuck inside and anywhere around that trigger guard. If it's not comfortable, you're not going to wear it. So you need to find something that is comfortable for you. There's some really good quality gear companies that are out there. Tier 1's a fantastic one. That's one that I personally use on the regular. Filster. Yeah. Yes, Filster. They have
Henry and Filster.
Both Henry and Filster. Absolutely. They have, again, quality holsters. You want to take a look at the things that are popular in the concealed carry training world, right? You want to look at, like I said, if a majority of people are using them, there's probably a reason why a majority of people are using them.
But not always the cheap stuff that's on like social media and everything. I would recommend buy once, cry once.
Right.
Don't go through 15 different cheaper holsters or anything like that.
If it's on a sponsored Facebook ad, it's probably not the right choice.
It's not ideal.
Okay? Right. Probably not the right choice.
Occasionally maybe, but it's probably not.
We've got to plug, speaking of Facebook, we got to plug the Filster Concealment Workshop. If you're not a part of that, regardless of whether or not you want to carry Filster's gear or anything like that, get on their Facebook page and check out that group. It is an excellent resource.
It's
PHLSTER Concealment Workshop. Check that out. And if you don't have Facebook and you're saying, well, I guess I can't be a part of the party, that's fine. Just visit filsterholsters.com, PHLSTERS holsters.com, and check out all of the awesome resources that they have on professional concealment.
Yeah.
Moving into like guns and from gear, if you're wondering what kind of gun that you should carry, use Filster or Henry holsters or some of the other quality Tier 1. Some of these holster companies use them as a guide on what type of gun to purchase, because they only make holsters for guns that are
quality.
Right. They've got to be reliable. They've got to be dependable. Or they won't make a holster for them.
And here's the thing that I would caution all of our listeners to do. Don't just go out and say, okay, I heard that such and such carries this, or the police use this. Like, go and put a firearm in your hand, actually get a little bit of training with it, learn what works and what doesn't. Because, what works for Frank doesn't necessarily work for Tim. What works for Tim doesn't necessarily work for, my wife or his wife or, whatever. Whatever the circumstance is. So where are you going to be carrying most likely? All right. How are you going to be carrying it? And then, moving on from that, you're not going to be sleeping with this gun on.
Right.
So you need to think about safe storage. One of the laws that went into effect this year, as far as talking about concealed carry laws, were these new pushes, these new initiatives about North Carolina Safe. So it's NC Secure All Firearms Efficiently. So they've already have a website that's up there. I think it's ncsafe.org. And while I may not necessarily agree with everything the North Carolina government puts out, there's some good information out there as far as securing your firearms, et cetera. But that's the thing, right? You're not always going to be conscious, and you're not always going to be having this firearm on. So you need to think about, okay, when I'm in that code white, right? When I'm in my safe space, I'm in this, okay, I'm starting to wind down for the day. Where am I going to put this firearm? Where am I going to store this firearm to where, unauthorized persons don't access it? I know, as we've talked about multiple times in the show already, I have kids. So I have a place where I can stow those firearms and they are not accessible to them. But in the event that I, God forbid, need to use one, I still have ready access one. So that's the fine balance. That's the dance that you have to do to try and figure out, okay, how can I make sure that unauthorized persons don't have this? And how can I still have ready access to a firearm? God forbid I need to do that.
And going back to the like holsters and stuff like that for concealed carry, fit the firearm to your lifestyle.
Yeah.
Not always fitting your lifestyle to the firearm.
Yeah.
Because sometimes, depending on, like, you don't need to go out and buy a whole new wardrobe or anything like that. Like, there are holsters out there and gear out there that you can fit to your lifestyle. If something doesn't work, don't give up. I've known quite a few people that they don't like. Oh no, I don't like concealed carrying because it's uncomfortable. Well, you just haven't found the right holster. Try this one. Oh my gosh, I love this holster. I'm going to carry every day now.
And and something else that I see often in concealed carry classes, especially after somebody first gets their concealed carry permit, they first start carrying for the first time, is they catch themselves constantly touching it. Right? Like, is it there? Is it there?
Plucking on their shirt and stuff.
Exactly. Yeah. It feels different, right? So now you're adding a new weight, right? It's not something that you've had around you any time before, so it feels different. And then until you put in the practice, until you wear it regularly around your home, around your property, right? Until you really start getting comfortable with that, it's going to be like a little mental thing where you're thinking, okay, well, do I have them? I can always tell when a concealed carrier is either new or is not comfortable carrying because they're constantly picking at it in public. It's like, so you can walk through wherever a grocery store or something like that, and you see somebody just constantly flicking their shirt, or they're constantly like touching it, and they're like, hey man, I get it, like, you're carrying, so does everybody in this room know that you're carrying now? You're making that obvious, but don't overthink it. Get some quality training, get some quality gear. Really start working through that.
Right. Some more awesome resources. You have Greg Ellifritz of his blog that he puts out every month is awesome. There's all types of different resources there. Go to rangemaster.com, sign up for the Rangemaster newsletter. Tom puts out an excellent newsletter every month. Includes a drill of the month, which we actually shoot a video for now.
Thank you, Zach.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. But there are a lot of excellent resources out there that can help you along this journey as well. And
I don't want to miss on an opportunity to plug Apache. I mean, there's just so much content that we're putting out. Check us out on Facebook, Instagram. Check out our website, ApacheNC.com. I think we're Apache Solutions LLC on Instagram and Facebook. Mm-hmm. Reach out to us. Our phone number's there. If you guys have your listening audience, if you're like, hey, I'm wondering about if I have a question about, just call us. We'll gladly answer the phone. We'll wear that thing out.
One quick thing. We had gear and training and education. Last one, quality representation.
Yeah.
Make sure you get representation, insurance, and concealed carry insurance, because it is extremely important if you're going to be carrying that.
We're going to devote an entire segment sometime soon about just that, just calling a quality representation.
We probably need to get to the competency of the month now.
Yeah, so let's talk about the competency of the month. All right. Since we are into September now, we do something that we call the competency of the month. We talk about a different subject every month and challenge your level of competency on the subject. It started out as an in-house thing that we were challenging fellow instructors and that type of thing. And then since we started the Rack Show, we thought we would share it with our audience. So this month, we are talking about functions of a cartridge or shell and the phases of ballistics. So, where are we at with that?
Well, I think last time we had talked about, the different phases of the ballistics, right? So the internal, external, and terminal. Mm-hmm. We had gone through, some of those again. The generic, how a shell, how a cartridge works. And we even touched on, talking about, what type of concealed carry cartridge you should carry, right? So as far as, going through that. Something that we haven't really talked about yet, Mo, is going to be shotguns, right? So shells, right? So what are different types of shells that are out there? What are different types of cartridges and what can they do? So Zach, quickly, as our shotgun aficionado, in my shotgun, my self-defense, my home defense shotgun, what type of cartridge should I carry and why?
Federal Flight Control, number 8 or number 9 double-aught buckshot.
Fail.
Period.
Fail. Fail. He just tricked you. He said cartridge and not shell.
Aha!
I knew what you're talking about. That's why I corrected you. But yes, that is what you should be carrying in your self-defense shotgun.
You're right. You're right. So as long as that shell, right, is patterned to your particular shotgun, we need to make sure that. So
yeah.
So that
but that's for the most part what most people use because it's superior to most.
Yeah, that's a great starting place. Like so, Federal Flight Control, number 8, number 9 shot, really starting to go through there.
So speaking of that, Sunday the 24th of this month, from 2 to 6 p.m. is 4-hour workshop on shotgun manipulations that I'm going to be teaching, and Frank's going to be helping out with that. Manipulating the shotgun more efficiently, reloading emergency reloads, that kind of stuff. So come on out.
All right.
Over half full.
Let's do it. Over half full. So looking forward to that. Guys, it's been an absolute blast of a show today. We talked about all kinds of fun things. Really appreciate you coming and joining Zach, Tim, and I. And listening on. We'll see you guys next week.